Should we do a podcast?
Yeah, we should probably do that.
We should probably do a podcast. I'm excited to talk about songs that we talked about last week.
Yeah, we might go through some of these pretty quick.
Yeah, I think this might be a pretty short one, but that's okay because these songs are still good.
Our fucking plans episode is going to be 2 hours long, I'm pretty sure. So
yeah, no, it's gonna be nuts when we get to that point.
Welcome to Noise Floor, a podcast about music and our favorite artists' discographies. I'm Troy Sennett.
And I'm Matt Kistler.
And today our Death Cab for Cutie series continues with their second album, or maybe their proper actual debut, depending on how you count. You can play these songs with chords as a demo or an album, but we're calling this their second record, and this is Something About Airplanes, released in August of 1998 on Barsuk Records, produced and mixed by Chris Walla, their guitarist, keyboardist, general musical mastermind, and mastered by Tony Lash. And this album, I feel like, is the beginning of Death Cab proper. I mean, like I said, many people count the first one as just a demo, but this is the one where they say, let's take the demo and let's do it, quote unquote, for real. Although they're still recording this at their house, still doing it on kind of their own terms. But this is where Death Cab proper, I think, really begins. Matt, what's your relationship with Something About Airplanes?
So this was, I believe, for the longest time, this was the first Death Cab album that I paid for, like, with money, instead of like getting a burned copy from a friend. Because I think I went to the Borders and it was what they had, and I was like, this seems neat, I'll pick this up. And that was probably in like, it was definitely way pre the reissue that occurred in 2008, 10 years later, because my CD does not have all the bonus tracks on it. And by the bonus tracks, I mean the bonus live show that we'll talk about a little later. Yeah, I don't know. This was like post me like listening to Transatlanticism. So it felt a little different at the time, but like I think I saw the through line of how we got to an album like Transatlanticism from here, because like this is like like you said, it really does feel like the beginning of Death Cab proper, and like a lot of the like kind of production techniques that happen here are like kind of the early seeds of like cool things that Chris Walla will do later on, with the band, with other people, and whatnot. But this is, you said you had not really listened to this before, right? Like prior to now?
Yeah, so I would pick up these CDs whenever I would see them at a yard sale or the dollar bin at a record store or whatever. So I like have the old Death Cab stuff sitting around. But I have just always been way more drawn to Plans and later Death Cab. So a lot of these new ones are kind of a new experience for me. I had probably heard them all at some point, but not really deeply engaged with them. And I think this is like both of our experiences with Death Cab's discography is pretty common. People who heard them in 2004 to 2007 or whatever, and went backwards from there. So this is not an uncommon experience of their discography. And I feel like going all the way straight back to you can play these songs with chords is pretty jarring. And this is maybe less so, but I still hear a lot of the youthful scrappiness and a lot of the figuring it out going on in Something About Airplanes as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I think it's kind of like it feels like it's being approached with a beginner's mind, like there are things going on this album that like people like deeper into their career would be afraid to try or just would think is bad practice. There are some drum sounds on this album that I could not have thought of in a million years. Like just production wise, and I'll go more into like what that specifically is, as we start talking about the songs. But like, just like really giving it a close listen for the first time in years, I'm noticing these things, and I'm like, I feel like a more quote unquote mature band like wouldn't make an album that sounds like this. But I love that they like revisited these songs with like this approach of like, having a little bit more like sophistication in terms of like their like, you know, the band tightness, the production approach, et cetera, but like also they're still a band of young dudes like figuring it out.
Right. And it shows up in the writing too, because Ben Gibbard in later interviews will talk about how he doesn't really understand what he was writing about on this album, that he describes these songs as like, you know, so pretentious and so like trying to write something that's very deep and profound, but it just sounds like gibberish to anyone who's not in his head.
Sure.
And I think he throughout his career, he tries to sort of streamline his songwriting and be a little more direct in what he's writing about. Not to say that the lyrics on this album are bad, but like I get what he's talking about, because I would read through a verse and I'd be like, I have no idea what the hell all these images mean. There's some very interesting lines, some interesting turns of phrase, but sometimes I don't know what it adds up to. And I think in reflecting on his own writing, Ben is basically saying the same thing and identifying that as maybe a weakness of these early records.
Yeah. It is funny to like hear people talk about kind of their own writing in that way, because like you can totally see that. Like the things that are a little more obvious on the record, like you can tell that they're like a degree or so abstracted from like the core idea that they're trying to convey. Like this is a thing I've done when writing before. Like, okay, what am I trying to say here? How can I make it sound more fancy? And like I feel like that was the approach in a lot of these songs. I did like what did you read that Julia Gray retrospective in Stereo Gum by chance?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I really loved the what did she say? Yeah, she's like his style was a lot more impressionistic. He said, I was writing those songs in my early 20s. I thought I was being more clear than I actually was. It's a familiar fogginess that wafts through something about airplanes, a perspective colored by raw emotions that you haven't made sense of yet, patchy memories of wounds that are still fresh. And like I think that and then like she goes on to say, Airplanes, along with the albums that followed, sacrificed the specificity of a story for the rush of a moment, which like that feels very on point for like what's going on here.
Yeah, that is a very good description of the writing on this album. I also think there's something a little bit, I don't know, cheeky or sarcastic about this record in like calling it something about airplanes as a bit of a like, oh, what should we call our album? It should be something profound. It should involve airplanes, and then putting a boat on the cover and, and covering a pretty silly song from a band that Ben had been in previous to Death Cab. Stuff like that it sort of is an interesting contrast. It plays into this sort of like, I don't know, the sort of post-grunge, like, sort of Northwest indie rock attitude that it feels like it is, there's this kind of battle going on in the band between Ben as like I said, wanting to be a profound writer, and also the general attitude of the band being a little like, fuck it, who cares, in a way.
Right, yeah.
I don't know if that's like I'm reading too much into that, but I get a little bit of that. No,
vibe. I mean, that feels like something that kind of happens naturally in your early 20s if you're not like Conor Oberst,
right? Yeah. And this is like, I feel like this is a band that like they know that they're really good and they're trying cool stuff, and they are artistically like, I don't know, they're. Like I said last week, like I have so much respect for Chris Walla as a producer. You read about the kind of the stories of making this record and the creative stuff they were doing to record it in literally the house they were living in.
Right.
And so the stuff like that is like, oh, they were actually doing something really cool. But then you're right. There's the same kind of like, we're in our early 20s and not taking anything seriously to it as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing that I just think is so very funny about this is kind of like right in the middle of those two ideas or attitudes I was talking about, is that Chris Walla, among other things, is credited as playing guitar, organ, electric piano, and things on the album, which I think it's just a wonderful credit to have.
Yeah.
I also I love the the CD, like the booklet for this album, because like every other page is this like vellum paper that creates this really cool, like hazy effect over all the artwork.
Yeah, I do remember that about the booklet. Yeah.
Yeah, Copeland did a similar thing with Beneath Medicine Tree, which I always really liked.
Oh, yeah.
And yet another really cool CD packaging for an old Death Cab record worth seeking out if you're a collector of those things.
Definitely, yeah. And they are not hard to come across.
Right. I don't know, anything else generally on this record before we get into the songs?
Nah, I think we should get into it.
Let's do it. So this opens with Bend to Squares, and a song that sort of reels you into the record with this kind of slow beat, they picked guitar and then a cello line that runs through the whole song. I think the cello is a particularly nice touch here. Yeah,
it's really cool. Like because we're getting like it's like overdub cello. Like it's one person playing, but like we get kind of a lower part and like a kind of a higher part that like occupies more of the register of like a viola without actually having to have one.
Yeah, it just is using this like one string part in really cool ways in the mix, and they're all, Walla is doing all kinds of stuff with this. The drums are like I think panned off to the left, but the reverb on the snare hits is on the right. So it's one of those songs like we talked about a little bit last week that it just puts you in a very strange sonic space, and you never know what to expect from it. It keeps you on your toes, even if the songs are not like taking crazy left turns.
Yeah. The drum thing you mentioned is the thing that I kind of brought up earlier, and this is something that happens several more times on this album, where like you have the dry like drum like track, like not fully dry, like there's some reverb on it. I imagine I didn't like turn it up that loud to tell if there was like a tail on it, but like there's that in the left ear, and then in the right ear, yeah, it's like a tiny bit of the dry drums, and then like all of the wet effects on it. And it creates this like just absolutely like wild, like sometimes a little bit dizzying experience depending on like the ways in which the drums are being processed. But like, I think it's really cool and effective on this song.
For sure. This is the song that Ben cites as an example of trying to write dense and profound lyrics that ended up being about nothing. Do you have a read on what the song is about, or what any of these like images are getting at?
So the way that I like kind of read it, like, and this is kind of generic, but like this feels like it's a song about like moving on from something that you need to move on from, and how simultaneously freeing and absolutely horrifying that is. Like I'll tell you right now, I don't know what a way to cut lengthwise means in that reading of this song, but like it just there's a lot of images that like just are directly about like letting go, like your fingers came unwired, quite a slip, a loosened grasp. And then like kind of talking about, the weights down so you can move forwards, like kind of alluding to like, this is something that needs to happen so that I can move forward with my life, even though it hurts a lot. I don't know. Like, again, there's not a ton here to go on, but that's kind of where I got from Ben's admittedly maybe slightly opaque lyric writing here.
So I'll give you two reads, I guess, ideas that I have about the song.
Okay.
One, I think that the bend to squares 5 or 6 times feels like a reference to the, like, how many times can you fold a piece of paper in half?
Yes.
And like getting more and more resistant as you try to fold something into a tighter and tighter box, which fits with your read of like, this is about something that just needs to end because it's compressing you in a way. I love the little like pause with the guitar ringing out between the last chorus and the outro, the What a Way to Cut Lengthwise.
Yes.
Which is just a really, really incredible bit of arrangement there. I just love how that sounds. But then, I mean, the What a Way to Cut Lengthwise is, I feel like a reference to self-harm. Like, I don't know what other way to read that as.
You're probably right. Yeah.
But it's in his exactly what he's talking about. Like, here's a turn of phrase, and I'm not really going to explain it, and I'm not really going to like dwell on it outside of repeating it 4 times just to make you think about it. But that's the only way I can really. I don't know that it all comes together, but it's how I hear that verse for sure.
No, I think now that you say it out loud, I'm like, yeah, no, there's no other way to read that, is there?
Yeah, and it kind of ties back to some of the other ideas in the song, I guess. But like,
Sure.
I don't know. I agree with Ben's own assessment of his writing in this time period that like it could have tightened up a little bit.
Sure, yeah.
After that is President of What, the first of 5, I think, songs that are carried over from You Can Play These Songs with Chords. That
is correct.
We've kind of talked. So we've talked about some of these before. The main thing I think to look at on this version is, well, I think there's a slight lyrics change, but I feel like the recordings are cleaner. It's not a huge difference in arrangement and sound. It's just tightened up a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference of which version you like better?
That's a really great question. I think I like this version a little bit better. And that might be familiarity a little bit, but like I think there are some songs on here that I'm like, I kind of like the You Can Play These Songs with Chords version better. But I think here specifically, I think I like this one a little bit better. I can't 100% tell if it's the same keyboard they're using for that little part.
Is that the thing that sounds like a Rhodes through like a super overdrive or something?
No, I think that's the small piano that Ben plays. The one that we were talking about that's like a kid's toy.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is just a crappy like Casio preset. But here it sounds like it might be like a slightly more expensive keyboard organ preset, maybe.
Yeah, whatever it is, there are a lot of interesting, neat keyboard sounds going on here.
Definitely, yeah. But like overall, like the performance is a little bit tighter. Like you said, the production's cleaner. Obviously, like that's kind of a theme for this entire album. In terms of like the new versions of these songs that we've already heard. It feels like it's maybe a little bit faster too, but I'm not sure. I didn't like do a side by side comparison. But that might just be like a little less time wobbliness happening.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. It does feel a little more energetic, a little more urgent on this recording, but not like a ton. This is not one where I think there's a huge difference in the sound. I'd probably pick this one with the two next to each other. But then champagne in a paper cup, I actually think something is kind of lost in the cleaner performance and the cleaner arrangement.
Yeah, I think I agree with you on that one. Like it's not a bad version of the song by any means. It does have some wild drum production stuff going on. There's like some like echo-y stuff happening with like that kind of left right effect thing going on. But yeah, I do think I agree with you. I think I like the Chords version non-insignificantly better.
Yeah, and I mean it makes sense to carry this one over. I think this is one of the highlights of the demo, and
for sure,
also probably a highlight of this record too. And they're playing with sort of unconventional song structure that we talked about last week. They're playing with we talked about a lot of the imagery and the lyrics in the song last week, and it makes sense that this is kind of a defining song of the early period of the band, I think. Yeah.
I will say that like we kind of talked about how the way that the line "I think I'm drunk enough to drive you home" now hits in the Chords recording. I don't think it has quite the same weight this time around, and I think it is a direct result of everything being like kind of cleaned and tightened up a little bit.
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Then we get to Your Bruise, another one that has kind of like a bit of an unconventional structure. That is basically just two verses and then just a repeated chorus that goes on and on for the rest of the song.
Yeah.
What do you think of this song?
I think the song is neat. It like looking at it on paper, I'm like, this is really an odd choice, but I think it works in practice. I love that there's a Mary Timony shout out to Helium, obviously. Not 100%.
I've never listened to Helium.
They're very good. You would like them a lot.
Okay.
But I haven't listened to this Super Bowl EP that's being like referenced here. I think the idea is that they're talking about how far away they are from Washington. Again, like making an image to represent a very simple concept. But this one's, I think, a little more transparent than a lot of the others on this record.
I feel like there is a bit of a running theme on this record about like how you present yourself and, trying to be something you're not and whether that can ever work. And I think there's a little bit of that in this song too.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like this is very much a like you are suppressing something that you should not be suppressing for maybe for the sake of others, maybe because you think it's helping you. But it is simply not working out that way. Specifically in that hook, like there's a reason that's repeated. Like that feels like it is the central idea of the song.
Oh, for sure. And it gets like heavier and heavier as it goes on. I think this is a pretty well arranged song.
Yeah, like I think in the hands of a lesser band, like a concept like this would just not work at all. But like just all the parts work together so well. I really love the sound of the guitar in the intro, not to like jump all the way back to the beginning of the song, but I was like, is this like a banjo or like a resonator? And I think it's literally just an electric guitar that's just been processed to death. And I think it works out really, really well.
It's good stuff. Like I said, Chris Walla, good producer, even really at a young age.
Wild how that worked out.
Then you get pictures at an exhibition. This is yet another one where I very, very much prefer the Chords recording to this one.
Yep.
I think this one is kind of the most cleaned up. It's not the most changed. I think Amputations has more, it is extended more, but this one just, I don't know. It's not like they ruined it completely, but they play with what they're doing with the mixing stuff and the panning, and just the performance overall feels a little less. It feels more refined, which takes away something from the song, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I do remember also like there were I remember looking at the lyrics last week for talking about the Chords version. I was like, why are there lyrics missing? And it's because they're missing from this version of the song.
Yeah, they took out a couple lines, changed a couple of the images a little bit. Yeah,
I mean, and like again, the core song is still there. It's still a really good song, and I think it's a good recording of the song. But yeah, I just feel like something is a little lost here in the tightening up of it. And like I know it's like maybe the most like pop adjacent song on either record, I guess, and like maybe that's why it made sense to do that at the time. But yeah, it loses a little something in its polish.
And pop adjacent, despite not having a typical song structure by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Ben says that, and I'm like, I'm not sure I get it, but okay.
I mean, I think it's just the hook, which is very catchy.
Yeah, that's true. He only repeats it twice this time, though.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the third time, because the outro is just I'm definitely shaking over and over again.
Sure. Yeah. Then you get Sleep Spent, which is actually a bit of a departure stylistically. It's a much quieter song. Ben's vocals are mixed so far back, but it's full of very pretty guitars, and this is a real like a real sad emo breakup song.
Oh my god, yeah, it is sonically plodding, lyrically incredibly sad.
Yeah.
Like it almost has like I wrote down like it almost has a country dirge feel, which I think like lends to that like it's pretty fucking emo feeling.
When you've got the road imagery, the choking the bottle's neck, I can see some of that tying back to, like you said, the country dirge thing too.
For sure, yeah. The images in this song are pretty visceral, I would say, more like maybe even more so than on other songs. Lots of like the hook is "Drive away your mouth from my ears," which like the genius annotation for this is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. But like, yeah, it they read it as like Ben's telling his lover to shut up, and I'm like, I don't think it's that like.
I mean,
basic.
I just think it's a song about ending a relationship and not letting the person down easy.
Right,
what
yeah.
It feels like, and so it's, which there's weight to that, and there's like regret around that or remorse possibly, but in the song is kind of, I feel like it's kind of about, kind of like you mentioned with Bend of Squares, like something that needs to change, needs to end, and I'm finally, sucking out the poison or whatever.
Right, yeah, and like this is like. it feels like there's two ways to read this song. One is like kind of this like very deeply introspective way that we've talked about already with Ben's writing, and it's like I narrator of this song am in a bad place, and you are maybe not necessarily enabling me, but not like giving me the space to figure out my shit, and I am letting that let me continue this. Or it is that, like, you know, choking the bottle's neck that pulled you from my bed, like the other person is having this problem, and like I need to separate myself from that.
Right, need to get away from it. Yeah. That's kind of how I read it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Next up is The Face That Launched 1,000 Shits. What a song title.
Yeah, for real.
This is, like I mentioned before, a cover of a song by the band The Revolutionary Hydra, a band that Ben Gibbard and Chris Walla were in, though they were not the primary songwriters. Who is credited with writing the song? Jay Chilcote.
Yeah.
And this is, I mean, I think the way Ben describes it is that they basically felt like albums should be 10 songs and they needed one more song. And so they decided to record this song that they liked. It's just very clearly not a Ben Gibbard lyric. Very obviously he didn't write it, so that makes sense. But even just like from this first, like, I'm standing up in my practice room, I'm all alone, the speaker's almost blown. Like, you could never imagine him writing that.
No.
And then, I mean, so the title being a play on Helen of Troy is the face who launched 1,000 ships. And it's just, I don't know, it's again, just kind of like a cheeky, sort of silly cover that ends up being, I think, one of the most well-known songs from this era of the band.
Yeah, and I think it is just kind of the title carries a lot of weight on that, I think, because if your eye is drawn to this album and you look at the back of it, you're like, ooh, what's going on here?
Right.
Amputation sounds like it's something, but man, The Face That launched 1,000 shits. But like, yeah, I don't like you said, like, this has so many hallmarks of not being a Ben Gibbard song, especially the shits lining the shores of Asia Minor. You can tell that I'm no longer, or that I'm not a minor in Asia no more. What the fuck? Like, what is this? Like, this
it's a different kind of obscuring the meaning or attempt at profundity or whatever than Ben is doing on his songs.
I don't even think it's attempting profundity. I think it's just trying to be funny.
Just being silly. Yeah, I guess so.
I don't know. It's like, overall, I would say I enjoy this song to some degree or another. It's just so weird that it's here.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm generally anti put a cover on the album. I like that this is a song that they were at least connected to. You know,
sure.
This is a band that they had played in before, and probably just thought it would be fun to give that song another life.
Yeah, for sure. I will say to the credit of the song, the last couple of lines are very good, and I would believe that Ben had written them. The splitting up his kingdom into 3 separate parts for his sons and their 3 separate hearts. Like the reference to the Louis the Pious splitting up the Carolingian Empire between his sons when he passed, and like everything just goes to shit immediately after because his sons hate each other.
I guess it kind of ends the song on a cliffhanger in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Or I mean, not a cliffhanger if you don't know history, I guess. But
right, yeah.
I mean, even that is kind of like an obscure reference in and of itself. So
yeah, that's not a thing I've thought of since medieval history in college. So
it takes a certain kind of nerd to just like get that reference outright, which is probably what they like about it and kind of what I like about it too.
Almost assuredly, yeah.
Then we get Amputations. This one, you know, there is kind of a dichotomy here between the songs that were re-recorded from the demo and the newer songs. And I do feel like the re-recorded songs, this one included, maintain a little bit more of the scrappiness and the production, like the drum panning, some of the other mix and production decisions. So it really does. In this one, it is most obvious, I think, despite being the one that's most changed from the demo, just in that it's extended. It has a much longer sample from like this inspirational
the Glenn W. Turner Drifter.
By Glenn W. Turner.
Drifter, rather. I don't know why I said Drifter.
But I don't know. What do you think of this version of Amputations?
I like it. This is a lot like I think my enjoyment of this is a lot closer to the original version. I still think I prefer the original version slightly more. But like things I do like about this version. One, like I like the cool drum production stuff once again. I love that we've kept the as it's credited in the credits, small piano in the bridge. And what I really like about this particular version of this song is like that like kind of extended drum ending that leads right into Fake Frowns. But like I don't want to get too far ahead of us. Is there anything else you wanted to say about Amputations at all?
I just the not terribly positive Pitchfork review of this record calls out the ending of the sample here. If everybody's making fun of you and criticizing you, then you know you're on the right track. As like yet another sort of, we're not taking this too seriously, like cheeky reference to how the band would be perceived, or how emo, to the extent that Death Cab is or was an emo band, would be perceived. I don't know that I buy that entirely. I don't know that it's like that I feel like but I don't know what I don't really know what I make of the sample entirely. I don't actually remember what I said about it last week.
It's a weird one.
It's a different sample on this one.
Yeah. I truly couldn't begin to tell you exactly like what they're like the bit about like when I'm coming knocking on the front door, you're out the back door looking for 4-leaf clovers. When you find it, you think somebody planted it there to fool you. Like that, like I feel like that kind of general vibe like ties into the themes of the song, like just the like feel it. I don't actually know, like it's because the song is again like we mentioned last week about this person who's changing themselves for somebody else, not recognizing what they already have. So like it feels maybe adjacent but not directly tied, I guess, is more what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I feel like the tie gets, if you go a little further in the quote, it's the instant disbelief. That's the reason we will never become anything. It is because we will never believe in ourselves.
Right.
So there's something to that. And again, I don't know that they're like endorsing this guy who ran a pyramid scheme, but I think just kind of drawing some comparisons, it is just an interesting sounding speech. He has an interesting voice. Like it kind of makes sense to use on a record.
For sure, yeah. And it wouldn't make sense to get rid of it entirely given, its place on the original recording.
Yeah. But like you said, this song does have an incredible seamless transition into Fake Frowns, a song that I think just rocks.
It does. It's so cool.
It's this really heavy 6/8 groove. It's got more energy than like the rest of the record combined, which I really like. Just some great guitar tones, especially at the end. I think the song's a jam.
Yeah, no, this is getting into like almost post-hardcore territory, or like, I mean, I guess post-hardcore in like the most literal sense of like your like earliest emo records, like your Embraces and your Rites of Spring. There's like there's this background guitar part that like really like ups the energy a bunch. The drums are like very much in that particular vein. Like born out of hardcore, but doing it a little bit differently. This song just absolutely rocks.
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a specific lyric to call out or anything. It just, this one I kept coming back to as a highlight on the album.
Yeah, it feels to me like this song is like kind of meant to be about manufactured outrage, which is like, if that's what it is, it's very prescient. Of sure. Things that would happen not very long after it was, because 98 we weren't all online yet, but like it seems based on the increasing pixels in sound, like it sounds like it's maybe a little bit about that, the early internet and the possibilities in both directions of that, but yeah, I don't know, it seems that's kind of the read I had on it. Is it's just about like the manufacturing of outrage, the idea of this fake frown that you're putting on in order to get other people to get on board with you on whatever the hell you're spouting.
Yeah, I can get on board with that reading. I do think, I mean, this is sequencing wise this takes the place of 2 cars in the demo. So because the amputations, the you can play the songs with chords ends with amputations, 2 cars, and line of best fit. And this is the same sequencing, just with this in place of 2 cars, which I think is a huge upgrade. I don't mind 2 cars; it's not a bad song, but it's certainly one of the less enduring songs from that demo. And I think this is just like, this is where, you know, this was the right choice for sure.
This was definitely the right choice. And another one of those things where it's like, in another world, this is the direction the band takes, and they're way less popular as a result. But it's cool to hear.
Yeah. And then you get into the closing track yet again, an upgraded, extended version of the line of best fit, which is, I feel like the production is even more out there on this one. There's all these weird affected snare fills and stuff going on in it. A lot of great like spring reverb, I think. Whatever Walla is doing to it, it's good.
Yeah.
And the outro is extended. It's what it ends up being like 7-8 minutes long or something by the end of it.
Something along those lines. Yeah, no, I really love this version of this song. Like, I think we talked about a couple nitpicks we had about this last week, namely with like the way that the original outro goes into like the reversed guitar from the beginning of the song, and like because like it's effectively like a fade and a fade out, fade in thing in the original recording. Here it's like blended seamlessly, basically.
Yeah,
like it works. You can tell that this is what they wanted it to sound like originally in a lot of ways.
Yeah, this is a place where I think everything about this song benefits from the re-recording, as far as I'm concerned.
100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, this is, and they get Abby Hall back to do vocals again at the end. This is one that grew into the song that it was supposed to be, between Chords and Airplanes.
Yeah, and a very fitting way to end the album as a result.
Yep, for sure. There are really just a couple of bonus tracks or like extra tracks from this era. There's one called State Street Residential that was released on You Can Play These Songs with Chords, the reissue. This one was written for Airplanes, left off at kind of the last second. I wonder if leaving that off was what they're deciding to cut State Street Residential is what opened up the slot to record Face It Lost 1,000 Shits. I assume that's the case.
I'm kind of guessing that is exactly what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is quite a good song.
I do too.
It's got a pretty neat bass line. It's tackling some of the same ideas about alcohol and drugs and addiction as kind of as a running theme through the album. But I think it has a bit of a different take on it, as like taking the perspective of an addict who is wondering, like, will I be the same person if I kick this addiction? Which is, I think, just an interesting perspective to think about.
It definitely is. Yeah, like, just generally speaking, like, this song is like dark, like, just in terms of its tone. The way that the way that Ben sings what a difference, more accurately in a lot of ways says what a difference it made towards the end of the song. Very dismal. Like, yeah, I can feel the, not sarcasm, just the like defeat. And it's like, yeah, I think this is a really well crafted song in a lot of ways. Like, it doesn't have some of the like production magic that a lot of the stuff that made the album does, but I think that's a function of it being a song that didn't make the record more so than anything else.
And it also, so the mix that got released, the version that got released, you know, is Chris remixes it, or, you know, does a final mix of it in 2002 when the Chords reissue comes out. So some of that is you're hearing his perspective after having made Facts, and I think maybe probably Photo Album by that point too.
Yeah, you're totally right. That does make sense given how those records sound compared to this one.
Yeah, and they even mentioned in the liner notes for the Chords reissue that the version that they released is 2 minutes shorter than the one that they had originally recorded for Something on Airplanes. And so, and Ben had some quip that he's like, if you think the song is a dirge now, just imagine it with 2 extra minutes of noise.
I want to hear it, honestly.
Yeah, I would love to. But I don't know. Would you put this song on the record, do you think, if you're sequencing it, if you're the band at this time?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I also don't know that I would put The Face That Launched 1,000 Shits in its place instead. So maybe I'm not the right person to ask.
Yeah, it could go either way for me. It does work really well as a standalone song, but I could see it dragging the middle of the album down a little bit. I get that argument.
I think that's the thing is like, I think if it was if it was able to be closer to the end of the album, that might make sense. Like, no, because I feel like
you can't break up the trifecta at the end though.
No, you really can't. And like, you can't put this, like, you can't literally put this right where The Face That Launched 1,000 Shits is, because this going right into Amputations is gonna be a real crawl.
Like, it's too much.
Yeah, and especially right after Sleep Spent, like that makes the middle of the album difficult.
Right. And I mean, like I said, I think that's my guess is that's exactly what they figured out. And that's how they slotted that in.
Fair point.
Yeah. And then you mentioned the reissue that came with a live album, live recording of a show at the Crocodile Cafe, where they played, there's one song that is not in the Death Cab oeuvre on there, which is a cover of the Smiths' Sweet and Tender Hooligan.
Again.
A much better Smiths cover than the last one we talked about, though.
Yeah, it is much better. They get who is it from Harvey Danger?
Sean Nelson from Harvey Danger.
Yeah.
Who is in this Bellingham, Seattle scene at the time. He and Chris Walla are also played on the first Long Winters record. That's another band from this era and scene too.
Wow, that's true. I forgot about that.
Take or leave a John Roderick. I get it. But
sure,
love those first couple Long Winters albums. They're so good.
That's valid. Yeah, it's funny because like I guess like Chris just like unearthed this one day and he was like, Ben, this is really good. And Ben was like, there's no way that he sounded this good 10 years ago. And they do. Like it's a really solid live show. Like,
yeah, and you can hear a little bit of I feel like a lot of these sort of emo indie bands from this time are like in the live environment, their louder, more ruckus, more intense side comes out. And sometimes they sound better live than they do on the records, depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's all the music. Anything else about Something About Airplanes or this late 90s Death Cab?
Nothing specific to the record. I really like. I kind of talked about this like a little bit before we started recording. It is cool to like get this treatment. Like I know that in a lot of ways you can play these songs with chords as kind of a demo, but it was presented as an album at the time. So like it's interesting to like get to like listen to these things in sequence and like kind of see the way that the songs evolved, even if like I don't like some of the new versions as much as the old versions, because like sometimes you get attached to the demo. It happens.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's cool to like have I always like when we have demos on this show to refer to, but like this, like, relatively quick follow up of like polishing these songs up like intensely in a lot of ways is a really like interesting thing to have available to us, like on a mass scale. Like you don't have to hunt these things down.
Right.
Yeah. You got any final thoughts?
Not really. I feel like we covered it. I mean, I think this album is good. It's cool to see where, much like the demo, it's cool to see where they came from and how they got started and to kind of track their finding themselves as producers, as writers and stuff like that. I'm just even more excited for what comes next because, again, knowing the heights that they reach to watch how they grow into it is going to be really cool.
Hell yeah.
You got a random recommendation for this week?
Yeah, this week I want to recommend a record that my friend David put out a little while ago, really just a few days ago as we're recording this. But it's the moniker is called Auto Rolo. The record is called Deep Sigh. It's kind of an ambient project. It's by and large instrumental. A lot of like plunky, like not plunky, but like a lot of like plucked instrumentation going on here. It like I haven't told David this yet because I'm not sure how it will be received, but maybe he's hearing this now. It feels like it bridges the gap between the electronic music that Sufjan makes and the music that Sufjan normally makes in a very good way. Just like it's got like a kind of, in a lot of places, very like light uplifting feel that I really enjoy, but also like feels grounded in a way that like a lot of ambient music doesn't, and also is like not very ambient at times. Like it's a really cool mix of like kind of this beatless floaty stuff, this more like plucked string instrument feel. There's some stuff with like straight up like drums on it, and it's just a really cool collection of songs that, like, despite its like sonic differences between the tracks, really comes together into a cool whole. But yeah, that's Deep Sigh by Otto Rollo.
That sounds really great.
Yeah, I think you'd dig. But yeah, what you got?
I'm gonna do something a little bit different. Instead of recommending an album or a book or a movie, I'm going to recommend Kittens.
Yes, thank you. Finally,
finally someone says it. Kittens are amazing. No, we just adopted a kitten. And we actually, I should tell the story because it's kind of cute.
Please do.
Yeah, we whenever we take the kids to the park a few blocks from our house, we often see this gang posse of cats that are walking around, and they're like so sociable and so cute and so cuddly, like way more than the average cat that you see outside, most of whom just run away from you. And these ones, like, they jumped in our stroller. They will come up like specifically and play with us. The first time Lisi saw them, she saw one of them, and you know, he came up and she was petting him, and then he turned around and like meowed really loudly, and two more cats came running across the street like he was the scout. But and so, you know, we figured out where these cats live. We've talked to the family a little bit, and told them how much we love their cats. And then this spring, like, went a few months without seeing them, and we ran into the family and was like, hey, you know, we miss your cats, what's up? And they were like, oh, they've been inside because 3 of them had litters at the same time, so we have 14 kittens in our house. And so we decided to take one of the kittens that they were trying to rehome, and so now we have a beautiful new gray cat named Newton, and he is very cute, and it's very exciting to have a new kitten in the house, even though we were not planning on getting a third cat anytime soon.
I'm so excited to meet Newton. I am so glad that this like kind of closes the loop on this adventure with these 3 cats.
I know, and it's just so sweet. Like,
it is. Yeah, it's so beautiful. Like, I love this.
That's the thing, is like, we knew that they were very, you know, very personable, very chill cats, and so it's like, oh, we've, you know, assumed and hoped that their kittens would be the same way. And then we went over and like met a bunch of them, and you know, it was clear that they were all pretty chill. So it's very exciting.
I cannot wait to meet Newton. I'm very excited.
Yeah. So yeah, my recommendation: pet a kitten and adopt one.
Highly recommend. Back it 100%.
All right. We'll be back next week, continuing the series, talking about, we have the facts and we're voting yes. And until then, you can find us on the internet at noisefloorpodcast.com. Follow us on Instagram at noisefloorpod, and send us email at noisefloorpodcast@gmail.com. We will see you next week.
See you next week.